question I've probably been asked 10,000 times is, how do I grow my income? How do I grow my business? How do I grow my freedom of time, my freedom of relationships, my freedom of purpose? And you're one person and I'm one person. And so that's the wrong question. The right question is not how, but who do we need to collaborate with to grow our business? You mentioned the accountant. I think it's, when you can create great who's in your life, that frees you up to be able to focus on your unique ability.
Hello and welcome to the Remarkable CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to chiropractors who want to transform their job into a business so that they can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Franson.
What's up, Remarkables? Welcome to another episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. I'm Dr. Stephen Franson. I've got a special guest here today. We're going to have a conversation, a compelling conversation about how can you ready yourself, your business, and optimize your eventual exit. I like to say death, taxes, and exiting. We're all going to do it as chiropractic business owners. I want to welcome to the podcast today a new friend, Mark Murphy, author of The Ultimate Investment. Mark Murphy, what's up, brother? Thanks for joining us.
Steve, thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here.
So you and I, we met through the Ultimate Achievers Club, through UAC. A friend of a friend of a friend brought you into our group. And man, I'll tell you what, I had an opportunity to interview you. They asked me, I have the privilege of co-chairing the board of the UAC. So they said, hey, Franson, why don't you jump on a call with this guy and vet him and make sure that he's got something that would be relevant. We know he's a smart guy. We know he's successful. Is it relevant to our group? And I think you and I had a 40-minute conversation. We were fighting for airtime, which is always a great sign. So immediately I said to myself, man, I can't believe I don't get to go to this event because I had I was traveling, so I wasn't able to go to this UAC event. But man, the accolades that came out of that, the feedback was awesome. And I already knew that I was going to ask you to be on the podcast. But after that, I was like, I got to get this guy on the podcast so that I can get my own private audience with this guy and hear what everybody else was raving about. So thanks for giving us some time, but more importantly, bringing your expertise and experience to this incredibly important conversation that all chiropractors have to be thinking about in the spirit of beginning with the end in mind.
Well, I would just think that first of all, I think that the interesting thing is that, I think that an entrepreneurial mindset starts with that instead of people have to get paid. So, people come in and they pay them for services or the like. And so you kind of have to measure it by, the number of patients or the revenue that you have. But I think what entrepreneurs truly do, or the best entrepreneurs, Steve, is they'll measure it on the growth of their patients. They'll measure it on how many people they're getting better and how many people are making a difference in the lives of the people they touch. And then all the other stuff about the people showing up and the money and all that stuff follows, as opposed to, I think the people that just focus, as Albert Einstein said, who, they always said, try not to focus on success. Try to focus on creating more value than anybody else. And I think when you see entrepreneurs do that, those are the ones that also wind up being the most successful.
100%. So I think there's a consciousness that we've been really intentional about introducing to our beloved chiropractic profession, and that is teasing apart the practice and the business. So very often these words are used interchangeably, and you just really shouldn't, because they're two different things. Because the truth is, Mark, is that chiropractors don't lay awake at night worrying about their practice. They lay awake at night worrying about their business, right? So like we were talking offline before, is, one thing that all chiropractors, at least the ones that listen to this show and the ones that I know, the ones that you've met, we've had one thing in common, and that's we were all inspired to make a difference in the world through chiropractic care, how to serve humanity, to help change the health trajectory of human beings by showing them a better way to better health, right? So that's the one thing that we all have in common. We all love taking care of patients and helping them achieve their health goals, overcome their health challenges, and just put families on a better path, right? So that's something that we all have in common. But there's a moment that when you signed up to become a chiropractor, there's a moment, we call it an HSM. It's a holy shit moment, when you realize that there's actually two parts to this thing, that I've got the opportunity to be a clinician, be a doctor, and I got to figure out how to be a businessman. I got to be a businesswoman. I have to figure out how to be an entrepreneur. And that's a bit of a wake up call for some chiropractors in a way that they're like, oh my gosh, in a scary, almost negative way where they're intimidated by that. Whereas some of us who are just by nature entrepreneurial, we're super energized by that, right? So you're talking to the whole spectrum here, Mark. So, this is a very relevant conversation in that, the whole continuum is represented here. Some people have sort of backed their way into owning a business and they want guidance and help on how to optimize it. And then there's another group that's like, man, I can't get enough of this. I'm so excited that you guys are having this conversation today, because ultimately I know I want to make a profitable and graceful exit. So, this is going to be a great conversation for everybody.
Well, I was just going to say that I think where it starts is that there's only three ways to create wealth. And I think that business schools, chiropractic schools, high schools don't teach people how to really create wealth. I think they teach people to create lifestyles. And if you work for 30 or 40 or 50 years and you work your what off, then maybe if you're lucky, you'll be one of the few that has a comfortable retirement. And so what we've always said, Steve, is, money markets, CDs, IRAs, 401ks, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, blah, blah, blah. Most of our clients have some or all those assets. Most of our clients will have some or all those assets all their life, but at best they're inflation adjusted holding tanks. If Bill Gates was on the phone with us right now or on the podcast with us now, he wouldn't say I'm worth $110 billion because of my 401k.
That's right.
True wealth is created in one of three areas. And that's either investing in your business or some other operating company. It's investing in real estate. It's financing deals. I'll leave out divorce and inheritance. And so if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a chiropractor and I'm watching this podcast, if I only have $1 to invest, the first place I'm going to invest is in my money machine, which is the chiropractic business.
Exactly.
And by the way, if you look at that as an investment, and if you have an unlimited appetite for investment, very little appetite for expenses, but a big appetite for investment, as long as you can get at least a 4 or 5 to 1 return on your money or more, you should be able to put as much of that capital to work as possible going forward. And that's been sort of our mantra for 30 years, and it's helped people create multi-generational wealth.
I love that you went there. The great Charlie Munger died yesterday, right? So I'm dating this recording by saying that, but he's somebody who's been, I've looked up to quite a bit. I've studied and I consider him a distant mentor and just love his philosophy in so many ways. His maxims were just incredible. What a machine this guy was, and what a career, as really being the architect of Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, everybody knows, Buffett, but he'll tell you Buffett jokes that he's the brains behind the operation, right? So he always described Charlie as the architect, and Buffett was the contractor, the construction worker, right? So, which is great. What a beautiful relationship. And I love how he used to say that diversification is a terrible strategy, right? So diversification is a hedge against ignorance, he used to say. So for those people who were just not willing to do the hard work and really master, study, gain knowledge, wisdom, experience, create things and invest their own things instead of just like a hedge against ignorance. Think about that, like spreading your money all over the place. Now, am I diversified? Do I have investments? Of course, I think we all do to some level. But for those people who are anxious and maybe risk intolerant of investing and putting their money in what you just listed, that laundry list of options that we have to invest outside of ourselves and outside of our businesses, the best way to mitigate risk is to invest in yourself and invest in the business that you know so well and that you have influence over. I won't use the word control. It's probably too strong, but you have so much influence over, and the ROI, the return on investment that you're going to get by investing in yourself and investing in your business is unmatched, right? And that has proven itself to me personally, and I'm sure you have your own experience, is I invest in myself. I have a constellation of businesses. I invest in my businesses and always do really well. This seasons, there's ups and downs like everything else, but I always net do so much better than when I drift outside of my expertise and outside and trust people to do better with my money than I'm going to do with it.
Well, all I could say to you is that you could buy a car wash or you could buy an ice cream parlor. And other than liking a clean car or the taste of ice cream, most chiropractors don't know anything about those two businesses.
That's right.
why would they not take, why would they not take that money and invest in things they've been trained to do and something that they have an expert in and something that they have the ability to influence? I think the word control probably is a little too strong, but the ability to make a difference in and be in their wheelhouse. I would start with one other thing first. I think that the one thing that keeps entrepreneurs, the biggest thing that keeps them from being successful, the first is the entrepreneurial mindset. You must have a mindset around, and I'd love to talk about entrepreneurial mindset as we go on. But I think that's number one. But number 1A, but number 1B to me is they've also got to have cash confidence. You've got to be able to have cash confidence so that you can either get through tough times and not change your strategy. If you have a bad quarter or a bad 6 months or a bad year, you've got to have enough cash confidence behind you so that you can make long-term plays in your business. The second thing is probably, I don't know about you, Steve, but for me, I've always made the most money or made my scores is when I had cash and other people were looking for cash. I had the cash and the ability to take advantage of opportunities. So for both opportunities and emergencies, cash confidence would be number one. Number two then would lead to be, if you only have $1, you want to feed your money machine. And to me, that for a chiropractor, that's their business. I would never starve my money machine, and I would continue to invest and invest and invest as long as I said I can get a 4 or 5 to 1 return or more on my money. And then once you get beyond that, you could do things like we think, as a wealth manager, there's dozens and dozens of asset classes. But for our purposes today, I think there's only two, and we call them paychecks, free capital, or play checks. So the other thing is once you have the cash confidence, once you've fed your money machine and not starved it, we want to set up a series of assets that will give them either a guaranteed or a highly reliable stream of income to replace their income as doctors. We'll call those paychecks. And then we want another series of assets where you can spend it, you can save it, you can give it away. But the important thing is it will not be responsible for producing income for your family. That's free capital or play checks. So if you have both paychecks and play checks, that's financial freedom. But there's still one more level. And that gets to your exit strategy, where I don't necessarily think in every business you say, hey, I'm 60, I'm 65, I'm 70, I've got to sell my business. As long as your business has EBITDA, it may be more valuable to continue to earn that business, even if you're no longer a chairside doctor, and continue to own that practice, because you got tax benefits of owning that business. You've got EBITDA, meaning if you could earn for every $100,000 that you could earn passively in your business, that's like having $2 million in the bank earning 5%.
That's right.
And it's tax advantage. You got tax benefits of doing that. So that's sort of the kind of I'll call it the pyramid of multi-generational wealth.
So I'm going to circle back because you laid down some gold there and I don't want anybody to miss it. So, here's what I heard was it starts with the mindset, which, almost everything does, right? So you have to have that right mindset, and the entrepreneurial mindset is, it's one part gut, two parts data, right? So we are hardwired to be entrepreneurial by nature, which means we typically have a higher risk tolerance than the average bear. But even if that's not you, if you're not the person that's like actually energized by risk, and it's actually something that excites you, and you have no fear or trepidation to starting things from vapor and having to make it rain. If that sounds like you've been blessed with that entrepreneurial gene, right? That cognitive profile. But it's also data, right? So it's understanding the things that we're describing. These are just factual in nature, right? So the advantage of being a business owner and understanding the opportunity that comes with being a business owner. Yes, there's risk, but there's so much opportunity there that if you learn how to be an entrepreneur and you learn how to be a business owner, because this is something you can definitely learn, right? Being a business owner and being a leader of a business is definitely a skill set that you can learn and develop. So that's the first piece of it. And it's going to complement that, be part of that mindset. Then the peace of mind, as you put it, having the confidence, the money confidence, the peace of mind that comes with abundance, and having created a level of security intentionally. We call it the peace of mind account. Some people call it the rainy day account. One of my mentors, Dr. John DiMartino, always says, invest in your inspirations, not your desperation. One of my core values is peace of mind. So I don't invest in rainy days. I know they're coming, but I want to invest in the peace of mind. So I set aside monies. So I have cash, I have money, and having that money for when there's either an emergency, because shit happens, or there's opportunity, or both, right? So having those monies and having a strategy in place, so you do have that cash confidence. Plus, you also know your business and you know how it throws capital in it. You know your model works, and you know you own and run a profitable business. So all those things create that cash confidence that I think you're referencing. And then ultimately recognizing that if you only do have $1 to spend, you should have the fluency. You should understand how the bookkeeping side of business. So you have a fluency working with your bookkeeper, working with your accountant, working with your advisor, working with your CFO or fractional CFO. You should have a fluency where you could say to them, okay, Mark, what's the return on my investment I'm getting here relative to what I'd get in the stock market or on my whole life insurance or on my, in real estate investment, whatever. Because when you start comparing apples to apples to apples, it feels better when you're like, hey, you'd be 8% in the market, you'd be 12 to 15% in that real estate deal. Yeah, you're going to get 4% back on your whole life. You're getting back 65% here in your business. Like comparing apples to apples to apples, I think is what you're making a reference to, is to recognize there is a robust return on that dollar when you turn around and invest in your own business.
Well, I think the more you measure it, the better it gets. I think that makes sense. One of my favorite books of all time is, which described our business, was the book Who Not How. I don't know if you've read that.
Yeah, Sullivan.
But yeah, it's to me the questions you've been asked. You talk about the freedoms that people ask. They always ask what the question I've probably been asked 10,000 times is, how do I grow my income? How do I grow my business? How do I grow my freedom of time, my freedom of relationships, my freedom of purpose? And you're one person and I'm one person. And so that's the wrong question. The right question is not how, but who do we need to collaborate with to grow our business? You mentioned the accountant. I think it's, when you can create great who's in your life, that frees you up to be able to focus on your unique ability.
100%.
And I think on top of that, the other thing is, when you spend, not like you and I have, not weeks or months or even years, but decades pouring into other people. You have an army of people that want to get up and help Steve Franson every day. And so, that's been your successful, because if it was just you, not that you wouldn't have been successful, but it's pretty limited, because you only have 24 hours in the day and there's only one of you. We need to create an army of Fransons, an army of Murphys, an army of everybody who's watching this podcast to help them create a bigger, better future.
And I love that perspective. As a theme in the Remarkable CEO program and in this podcast is leverage. We're making this identity shift from an owner operator to a CEO. You go from laborer to leader. Leader implies that you have a group of people that you're leading, right? So, and that you have a team of people, and that team of people are going to be employees, and they're going to be contractors, and they're going to be, partners, et cetera. There's going to be a group of people that you're going to go together, right? And we say that you don't have to be awesome at everything. You got to build a team that's awesome at everything, and that it takes a lot of stress off of that owner operator, because when you're the owner operator, let's face it, you got to be awesome at everything. That's wicked hard, right? So, I love the expression that the strength of the leader becomes the weakness of the organization. If you have that self-awareness and you understand that about your organization and your business, not just now, but where you want to go next as a business, you've got to recognize, well, where are the gaps? Like who do I need to bring into this circle? Who do I need to bring into this team so I can leverage their time, energy, focus, and talent to free up, as you put it, my time, energy, focus, and talent, so I can focus on my zone of genius, right? God only makes geniuses. So it's like, we should be spending all of our time in that space. And any minute that you're not in that space, you're costing your business and yourself money.
I also think with folks that you said, who do you invite at the table? Like, if you take a look at a typical, let's call it and there's no typical, but let's take a look at a chiropractic business. They probably have somewhere between 5 and 15 micromanagers in that business. I mean, they've got an accountant, maybe they have a lawyer, maybe they have a pension consultant, an investment specialist, a coach, somebody who does their insurance. We could probably find, somewhere between 5 and 15 people, as we've done. Most of those folks know each other. And so one of the things I think you have to do is you have to have somebody, whether it's the business owner or somebody like yourself, Steve, who coordinates and integrates all the micromanagers. And if they're good, just have them work harder and more efficiently for the doctor. And if they're not terrific, let's replace them and get good people into that mix. But the idea is, I think most people think 1+1=2. I think for most people, 1+1=1.5. When we want 1+1 = 3 or 4. And I think that there's really no synergy in the way people silo their approaches as opposed to try to turbocharge, what they're doing.
I love that perspective. We started a strategy that I'll share here that, as you say that this has been a new approach. A game changer for my wife and I was we brought in a CFO for our business. And most people don't need a full CFO. You have fractional CFO. It's just such a good move, right? So having somebody who comes in as a strategist, not just a bean counter, and they're coordinating the financial team, right? So your bookkeeping and your accounting, and bring legal into this as well, tax strategy, et cetera, working with your attorneys and what have you. Like they sit in our financial chair on our accountability chart in our business, right? So it's a critical role. But whenever I bring in an insurance person or a financial advisor or an attorney, what have you, to be on our team, you have to agree to a quarterly meeting, and everybody has to get around the virtual table. And we need to make sure that we're integrating our information, because I'm greedier than you, Mark. I want 1+1 = 11, right? So, and 1+1+1 = 111, right? So when you do this right, I want to get all the juice for the squeeze as we make all those investments across all those people. Man, they can't be siloed, because they'll do their job and they'll do their job well. And, they'll deliver on the value, you're in fair exchange with that person, but that's not optimized. These people have to have a relationship. They need to be communicating without you in the room, right? So they need to be cross-pollination. So I'm so glad you brought that up. It's been something that was sort of an organic evolution, because it just came out of pain and frustration. And, it was more scar tissue than just scratching my own itch, but it was like, this has to happen. Why don't you guys know each other? Why am I the go-between? Why aren't you guys talking to each other? There's a lot of wisdom in that, Mark.
Well, I actually like at least an annual board meeting of the people who are at your table, and with the idea that there's a real agenda that goes out a couple of weeks before, so people aren't just kind of winging it off the cuff. There's a real agenda of what that entrepreneurial CEO wants to find out from the people that he works or she works with and they trust. And so people can do some critical thinking around that and really add some value, because, if you're the chairman of the board of a Fortune 500 company, you'd have all these people to help you doing this. When you're an entrepreneur, it's pretty lonely. So who are the people that are going to be around your table helping you to make good decisions, and helping you to make good decisions, not only in your business, but in your life? And it's got to be not only a high trust relationship, but people have to be able to tell you the truth. Part of the thing you have to say is, do I have the permission, Steve, to coach you? Do I have the permission to tell you what I really think? Or do you, as opposed to maybe when I tell I tell Lisa, she says, does this dress, how do I look in this dress? I know what the right, by the way, she always looks
jumping on that grenade.
So it makes it easy for you. But let's say she didn't one day, I'm not going to share that with her, as opposed to if I'm on your board, Steve, mission in a very caring, thoughtful, loving way. But I want to be able to tell you that, here's where I think, we could do better, or here's where I think you're thinking wrong about this. And I think you have to have, I think that true entrepreneurs value people that are not yes people, but that can really have those honest conversations with them. Because when you start to get successful like you do, and a lot of the people you work with, you have a lot of people around you that are making a lot of money around you, and they're like, you're beautiful, baby, you're beautiful. Let's just not rock the boat. And that's not who you need. You need people that are going to tell you that the emperor doesn't have any clothes.
Yeah, you're hitting home with, I bet, a lot of people on the call right now. I've certainly been in that season myself, where you didn't surround yourself with people that would challenge you and people that were better in their role than you would be, right? So to hire people that know their job better than you would, and they're, it's not just 80% as well as you do it and you delegate it. It's some people are going to be able to do it 110%, 120% better, and they have authority in this space. And at the very least, if you have people that are aligned and they share your vision story and they share your core values and they have clarity around what you're trying to do as a business, those people should be able to, we call it brutal facts, right? So from Jim Collins, it's like the love language is brutal facts. It's like respectfully and compassionately, that's a terrible idea, right? So, or that's a behavior that's misaligned. It's incongruent, what have you, right? So I mean, I love that perspective. So I want to do a gear shift here, and I just want to make reference to, I love the name of your book, The Ultimate Investment. As we have this exit conversation, you're getting to the DNA of what is the secret to having the most successful exit, frankly, right? So, it's making your business more attractive to a buyer, right? So that's all it comes down to. It's like, what is the secret to increasing the enterprise value of my business? It's make your business more attractive to a buyer, right? So create the business so people will compete to buy, right? So if you get focused on that, we want to create a remarkable practice. I love what Roland Frazier says around, what a real business is it's, this business has first leverage, right? Leveraged marketing, leveraged leads generation, leveraged sales, leveraged delivery. So it's leverage, right? So it has bankable profits, right? So it's producing real monies that you can actually take out of the business and take home and put in your bank, right? And it has transferable value, right? So somebody else like you or I could walk in and look around and be able to say, hey, this isn't a job. This is a business. I want to buy this business. Speaking of that, Mark, like, what are some of like the high points? You've been involved in so many exits and advising this in this direction. It's like, how do you practically make a business?
I think it starts back with something. I think ultimately it also comes back to mindset. Meaning, I think first of all, for most of the people that we work with, money is not going to be their biggest issue in having a successful life in retirement. Most of the people we work with are successful. We've gotten them successful. We'll get to that in a minute. I think the first issue is that you have to be emotionally prepared to sell, in the sense that you've got to have something that you prefer to do as much or better than being a chiropractor. Right. Meaning, ultimately, having done what I've done, I have a lot of people that said, "Oh my God, I should have sold 5 or 10 years earlier. I'm like at summer camp for senior citizens. This is the greatest thing in my life. I'm so happy." But for every person that I have I probably have 2 that have said, "Mark, I used to have 6,000 patients, or I used to make $1 million a year, or I used to do this, and now I go to the dry cleaner and make dinner reservations, and I was all tied, like I've lost my identity because I'm no longer a doctor. I'm just another guy who has a condo in Palm Beach, or a house in Beverly Hills or something." And I think that's the first thing. And the second thing, as part of an entrepreneurial mindset, is in life, Steve, there are no finish lines. There are only So there's milestones all the way through your life and your practice, and in your life in getting married or having kids or doing that thing. Retirement is just another milestone. It's not a finish line. And I think ultimately the mindset of an entrepreneur is, entrepreneurs, if you're a true entrepreneur, just because they sell a business doesn't mean they stop being entrepreneurs. They've got to be able to unleash that power in other places. And that's one of the things we also try to help people with, so that they have more success after they retire than before. Not only financial success where their money's working for them, but just as fulfilling a life. We work with a lot of, and I'm an NFL registered player financial advisor. We have a lot of celebrities and athletes as clients. And it's amazing to me how ill-prepared people are for life after football or after basketball. And I think it's the same thing in retirement. You've got to get ready to do that. And then I think the second thing is that you've got to then get back to building a great business. That I think so many people, it's clear to me what's happened in dentistry and what's happened in the veterinary world is coming to chiropractic. You're going to see Wall Street, you're going to see Silicon Valley, you're going to see private equity. They're already starting to come in. They're knocking harder. They're going to be a player in this space within a few years, clearly. And we've got great deals of experience with that. And so ultimately, I see people talk a lot about top line, but I don't think people talk about EBITDA in chiropractic practice as much as they need to do it. And they're also not selling a business that would allow somebody to pay a premium to go do that. As an example, do you have I could give you 100 examples. I'll give you an example. Do you have your key people tied up in contracts because they're afraid they're going to buy your business and everyone's going to leave the next day? So if you've got your key people tied up, we could go through an entire checklist of literally 100 things you need to do to not only grow your business. And I think it starts with that I've never been afraid to be different. I'm afraid to be the same. Yeah. When people say to me, I want a level playing field, I used to always think that was stupid. But why would I want a level playing field? I used to say for decades, I would want to run straight downhill. And now I've kind of evolved that even one step further, saying, well, why would I want to run straight downhill? Well, I'd like to play in a competition-free zone where the only place that patient could get that experience is by working with you in your practice.
That's right.
And that's. So I think that's where where a true entrepreneur. I know yourself the little bit we've got to know each other, and I know myself. What keeps me up and what keeps me excited is I'm trying to figure out a way to deliver more value than I did today. I'm trying to I'm working over the next couple of weeks to try to create a business in 2024 that will put my 2023 business out of business.
That's right. I love that. I think the framework that we created for our Remarkable Exit program will definitely resonate with you. As I'm listening to you, unpack that from 30,000 feet. So we have a 5-step framework that will be second nature to you. The first is strategy, which is your vision for what does a successful exit look like for you, right? So what are you trying to accomplish? What are your priorities? Getting people clear on that. And then the second stage of this is readiness. It's like, okay, so how ready are you? Like, how ready are you as the owner to sell the business? Like you said, your identity and understanding that you got all of us. This is our baby, and we've created this identity around the role of owning the business. You're the founder, you started it, you run it. And there's been a lot of accolades and recognition and reward that's come with that. We've built a lot of esteem around that. Are you ready for that mentally? And what's next for you, right? So, and is the business ready? Is the practice ready? Is the team ready? Are the financial reporting systems ready? Like the readiness, like what's the readiness of the business? And then it's go to market, which is, taking this thing, just like you're selling a house, you now have to put it out into the market. Is it going to be an internal exit, external exit? Are we looking at external exit? Is it a Main Street exit or a Wall Street exit? Like you said, is there going to be a corporate roll up? Or are you simply selling to another doctor? It's like, what does that look like when you're going to market? Then there's a transactional piece of it, which is, the terms of the deal and prices and the attorneys and the passing of paper, the money, the contracts, and that whole process. And then what you were referring to, the transition, right? So it's what happens to you on the other side of it. So you're going to transition out of being a business owner or a founder or the boss. What's on the other side of it for you? And, for me, I can speak personally, my own experiences. I went through all 5 of those and clunky, sloppy, because I didn't have anybody guiding me. It was painful, right? So, I wish I could say I had a glorious exit, but I create programs out of scar tissue, right? So I create programs that, oh man, there's no reason you should go through the pain and the mistakes and the expense and the stress that I went through. So here's a program, a paint by numbers program to follow. And that transition piece, I knew that after 25 years as a practicing chiropractor, I knew there was a lot of rubber on the tires, and I was called to coach other chiropractors to reproduce what we had done. My wife, Camilla, is a chiropractor as well, like we had done in Boston. I had a strong calling. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. Okay. And it wasn't because I was trying to move away from the role as a clinician or a business owner, because I love being a clinician. I was seeing patients right up until the day I sold the business. My last day, I was adjusting patients. I never left the clinical role, even though I was a CEO, had multiple associate doctors, and turned it into a real business. I love taking care of patients. So I wasn't moving away from anything. I couldn't get out of there fast enough because I knew I was called to something bigger, that I was going to make a bigger impact for chiropractic and for humanity. So I had something in a transition that was pulling me forward, and I was very excited to do it. And so I'm just encouraging listeners right now is like, think about what that next thing for you. Maybe it is the fishing boat. Maybe it is, maybe that what we described as I do dry cleaning and dinner reservations. Maybe that sounds like really attractive to you right now. There's no judgment here, but just be super clear. Like, what is life after quote unquote retirement or selling the business? What's next for you? What is that next chapter as you get on the other side of this milestone?
Yeah, I think that people, I think a lot of people have worked so hard, or have just, gone from day to day to day, or year to year to year to year, that I don't think a lot of people prepare for that. Prepare for what they do. And, people always say to me, do you have a business life or do you have a personal life? And I always say, I have a life. I've just designed a life that I go from one thing I like, getting a chance to spend an hour with you, to something I like better, to maybe spending time with my kids, or going to a ball game, or going to the gym, or dealing with a client, or, doing, at this point, if it doesn't seem like fun, I'm not going to do it. In the beginning, I think in the beginning, you have to do that. I think in the beginning, if you're talking to the people that are at the early stage of their career, or the first of your 4 seasons, I think that you have to also understand that they can't get discouraged. It's got to be about discipline. It's got to be about focus. They've got to view failure as a form of market research. That it's just one step closer to success. That I think, I could tell you story after story that I spent money on that didn't work in the early part of my career. But I also said if I had not done those 2 or 3 things that didn't work, I wouldn't have done a couple of other things that made us millions of dollars.
That's exactly right.
And I think the number one job of an entrepreneur is to protect his or her confidence. Ultimately, you can't allow people to tie up space in your head, and you can't allow people to influence how you feel about yourself. Now that's not saying you shouldn't take sage advice. You shouldn't be open to constructive criticism and advice. I think you want to take everything in. But I think you also want to trust your gut and not allow people to control how you feel about yourself. I think that's the number one job. I think that when you see somebody that's not having the success that they want in their life or in their business, it starts with confidence. And if you can help them, and I think ultimately, I think one of the things that you need to do with people is you have to see people who they are and where they are right now. You can't see people through rose-colored glasses or be Pollyannish, but you have to see people at their highest potential. And you've got to be able to take those people and lift them up where you believe in them so viscerally that they believe in themselves.
I love that. And I'm so glad you went in this direction. I think it's probably the most valuable message that we could leave people with here today, which is, I know I've personally been intimidated listening to really successful people throughout my career, just asking myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, like how were they able to navigate all these challenges and adversity, and and they've been so successful and they didn't make the stupid mistakes. And that's early in your career when you start recognizing like, failure isn't the opposite of success. It's intrinsic to success. It's part of, as soon as you recognize it's like, oh, maybe I'll fail. No, you definitely are going to fail. Like, so just get your mentally your mindset again, once on the other side of the fact that's like, no, that's part of it. You're not going to avoid it. You don't want to try to avoid it. You want to mitigate the damages. But at the end of the day, the time, energy, focus, and money is not wasted. This is tuition, and God is preparing you, right? So you're in this training period of your life, regardless of where you are. I am still very much in a training period of my life. And, I know we talk about success so much, and Dr. Pete, who's my partner in this podcast, he and I, we really try to be transparent about the fact that's like, no, we're teaching from scar tissue here. We have some impressive failures, right? So everybody loves to talk about their successes, but those successes do not come and they do not last without the trail of tears that either comes before, after, or during, and between. And don't be discouraged if you're listening to this right now and just recognize it's like, this is the journey. There is no way for you to optimize your potential. There's no way you're going to get through this without getting hit, without falling down, right? Without making those failures. And there's going to be dark times and there's going to be dips. And just know that, Mark, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm guessing that you're like me in that we could have filled the last hour telling you, oh yeah, let me tell you the 10 things not to do. Right? Well, maybe we need 2 hours.
Steve, do you learn from your successes or you learn more from your failures?
100%.
Yeah,
the failures.
The other thing I also try to get myself out of is what's easy to do, particularly in this society, is it starts by telling the truth. No blaming, no complaining, no excuses. Meaning I make mistakes. We make mistakes. And I believe if you apologize, if you clean up your mess, and you make sure it doesn't happen again, I think for the most part, people are very forgiving. I think it's when you start to bullshit people and you start to make excuses and it's not my fault, Steve. It's your fault, Steve. It's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault. I'll get my homework or whatever, whatever the deal is. And I just think in general, that is, and I think the other thing too is it's not only focus and discipline, it's about falling in love with the mundane. It's being able to for a guy like you mentioned to me, that, in your heyday as a chairside clinician, you were seeing hundreds of people a day. At the end of the day, there is some level of having to just fall in love with the ability to do that day in and day out and do that in elegance and excellence. And I call it falling in love with the mundane, but I mean it in a positive way. Beyond imagination. It's interesting, that I try to teach our young people, try to take our transformational language so they can get a predictable result and they can step and repeat and step and repeat. And people go, well, what you said the same thing at this point every time. And they're going, well, I've said it 10,000 times and it's worked 10,000 times. Why would I try something else that didn't work? If you've gotten the results by doing that, why would you not have that in terms of the transformational language you have? The other thing I also think, you talk about the 4 types of intelligence a little bit. And I think the other thing that entrepreneurs have is, you got to be, I think IQ, everyone knows what IQ is. And I think you have to be smart, but I would say you have to be reasonably smart. You don't have to be a genius to be reasonably smart, but you have to have
That's for sure.
Everyone knows what EQ is. Can I read the room? Is Steve angry? Is he happy? Is he confused? Is his arm folded? Can you read the room? It's amazing to me how some people are clueless about the other people in the room. They'll go right forward with their agenda regardless. But I think you need to have some EQ. That's important. SQ is, do people like you or not? Do people walk away from you at parties or not? Or are you people that you're a magnet? But I think the last Q, AQ, adversity quotient, to me is the most underappreciated. Because I think in business, when everything is going great, everybody shows up well. It's when what hits the fan, where you have to turn lemons into lemonade, you have to flip the script. You have the ability to turn that problem into an opportunity, or take that person that's upset upset and turn them into a happy patient. The idea is that I think some of those skills are more innate, but you can teach those skills. You can teach adversity quotient. You can teach people how to react to other people. You can teach people to be better listeners.
100%. Yeah, I think God's got a great sense of humor. And in this training process, I love the expression that the best way to judge a partner, a potential partner, or somebody that you're going to hire or work with or work for or take an investment from is how do they behave when things are going poorly? That it's when everything's hunky dory, it's great. It's easy to be everybody's buddy. But what a great and compelling question. And maybe that's a good place for us to start signing off here. This is like, as we face, a new year ahead in 2024, and we're always trying to get clear on the next iteration of our business. And of course, that's going to call for us to ascend into the next iteration of us as a leader. Maybe that's a place that we could all be working on. This is like, I know things are going to be challenging. I know I'm going to face adversity. That's just part of being a leader. Am I the person that people say, yeah, but he behaves really well when things are going poorly, right? So it's like, what a great standard for yourself to be able to say, yeah, you know what? I think people know I'm consistent. They know what I'm, where I stand and where I'm grounded and what the priorities are. And I think that's what builds great trust is I think people relax around you. You're not a crazy person and you can lead from a place of strength and trust. So, hey, Mark Murthy, you're an awesome guy, man. I just enjoy getting to know you. I know this will be the first of, I think, many conversations in the future. I certainly hope that's true. We appreciate you just bringing this expertise and insight with lots of business experience to this remarkable CEO podcast on behalf of chiropractors listening and chiropractors everywhere and their patients and team members that are going to benefit from this conversation. We thank you, man. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Steve. Thank you so much.
God bless, brother.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Now go and be remarkable.